Bryan, my friend, great to talk to you, especially with a new album coming out. And I love this because it's a new album of old school. Why did you decide to take this approach?
It wasn't really my idea, I have to be honest. It was the idea of David Foster and Bob Rock, and they approached me to do something. After talking with them a little bit, I thought they were so enthusiastic. I thought it could be a good thing.
What is it like working with them again? Because you're talking about two of the best producers on the planet, and they just so happen to be Canadian.
Yeah, it's cool. No, it was great working with them again. I've never really worked with Foster properly. I mean, the first thing we did was Tears Not Enough back in the '80s. So, and with Rock, I did a whole album with Bob Rock. So it was interesting to get back together with them, and both work very differently to each other, but both have their attributes, and it was cool.
How did you go about picking the songs? Because when I say old school, we're not kidding. We are definitely talking old school. And how do you think these songs sort of represented the way you looked at music growing up?
Okay, well, if I was going to have done the songs that I really dug when I was growing up, it would have been everything from Black Sabbath to Led Zeppelin, and I don't think that they would have really necessarily worked. And who wants to hear me do a version of Smoke on the Water? I mean, those are sort of definitive in what they are. But what was interesting is I decided that I would choose songs that were around, in the lexicon of music at the same time that I remember, because everybody had a transistor radio back then, and so I just remember a lot of these songs from being around. They wouldn't necessarily have been songs I would have bought, with the exception maybe of Down on the Corner by Creedence Clearwater Revival, which I did have on my turntable. But most of the rest of them were all songs that I sort of knew, and so I thought it'd be cool to do something that was of the time when I decided music was going to be what I wanted to do.
But when you have classic songs like that and people know how the original,
Excuse me.
oh, bless you, the original folks, when you're redoing songs that folks already know about, how do you make some of those songs your own? Like, for example, for me, Let's Just Kiss and Say Goodbye, the Manhattans. I mean, that is a classic for me. How do you go about making it your own?
Well, that's a really good question, and the only way to do it is to go out and sing it. And what's nice about that version for me on the record is it's a one take, the whole band and my voice. It's a one taker, and when we came back in, listened to it, was like, oh man, it's gonna make it, because it was in the pocket, and you know, it didn't sound like the original, and that's me. Actually, when I was singing the lyric, I was also I'm gonna miss you. That's that's me doing the thing at the same time as the lead vocal. I think David might have flew one at the end that I missed doing, or Bob, sorry, might have flown one in at the end, but it's a live vocal.
Man, it sounded like you had a blast doing this.
Yeah, there were just moments, and it was hard to choose the songs because I didn't want to choose songs that first of all, I didn't want to choose songs that would have been too popular, that it would have just sounded like the poor cousin, So it was good to choose songs that were recognizable songs, but I wanted them to sound like they would have fit on any of my albums. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're
It's
saying.
really hard to do a Beatles song, for example, without it, because the Beatles just were so great, and it's hard to put yourself in those shoes. But choosing a song that wasn't quite as on the radar, like Any Time at All, I think you get a pass. At least I think that. I mean, the public will obviously it'll be remain to be seen what they say, but so I just didn't want to make copies.
But did you ever have a moment where there was a song where you went, oh man, how do I approach this? And it was maybe one of those that wasn't a one take. Maybe it was several takes before you felt this is right.
Maybe Sunny. That was a hard song because there's so many key changes in the song, It's the only song on the record that I'm not playing the guitar other than God Only Knows, which is just David and I. And David's on piano and I'm singing. And so the way we would cut the songs generally would be, okay, you go in, Bryan, and here's a microphone, and just jam the song, and we'll record it, and then we'll put David down, or David and I will play it at the same time, and then we'll build the track from there. And generally, within a verse and a chorus, it'd be like, oh, no, let's do another song, let's try something else. Or, if the tape didn't stop, or if the recording didn't stop, then we generally would make it. It was really fun singing songs like Many Rivers to Cross, for example, which, I love Jimmy Cliff. He's so great, and it was big shoes to fill, man. I mean, you telling me, it was like I really wanted to try the song, and so I just gave it 100%, and I think it worked.
Because some of these artists are still around.
Yeah.
Do you ever think there might be a chance that if you decide maybe to tour this or whatever, that maybe in some spots or stops, you can actually sing those songs with those artists?
Well, that'd be nice. We'll see. It'd be interesting to see if they'll even talk to me after what I've done.
But you still made time, man. You got a new track on this also.
Yeah, we got a song that Jim Valance and I wrote called She Knows Me. And it's produced by David Foster and myself. And, David did a really good job. If I look back on my demo of the song, he really took that song and made a record out of it. So I'm really grateful to him for that.
Do you think this album's, we were talking about this, a couple of us were talking about this before this interview, and we were saying that we feel like this album came out at the right time because a lot of the young artists are rediscovering these songs, and in fact they're changing their sound to be more of a, I don't know if you want to use the word pure, meaning more instruments, more horn sections, more of those kind of things.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily important that you put lots of stuff on a record. What's important is that you get that arrangement. It could be just guitar, bass, and drums, as long as it feels real. I'll tell you something interesting that did happen though. Was recently I was in Europe, and there were some fans waiting after the show, and I brought them all inside and played them the record just to get a vibe on what they thought of it. And interestingly, they didn't know many of the songs. Oh, Sonny, wasn't that a Boney M song? Or, oh yeah, God Only Knows, wasn't that in Notting Hill? Like it was really funny to hear what their references were because they don't know the originals. Rock and roll music, no, don't know it. Yeah, it was really interesting, really interesting.
So who knows? Maybe hopefully with an album like this, it's going to help some of these the young folks maybe want to explore more of the old school.
Well, and that brings me to a point where I have to tell you that that's how I discovered a lot of these singers because, I was a big fan of a band called Humble Pie when I was growing up, and they had an album called Rockin' in the Fillmore, which was recorded in New York, and that building's no longer there, but it was their best record. And on that record, they had a song called Hallelujah, I Love You So, which was written by Ray Charles. And I kept looking at that name on the record thinking, there's nobody called Ray Charles in this band, because I was only like 15 or 14. Who's Ray Charles? So you go off and you check it out. And there was no Google, so you had to go and look in a record store. Or what I would do is I would check out my father's record club, because there used to be a thing called the Columbia Record Club, where you used to get 3 records and then we get one for free.
Yeah, for a penny.
So for a pound. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you get one for a penny, exactly. And so I would pick up records that way, and that's how I've discovered things like Chris Christopherson, because I was a big Janis Joplin fan, and who wrote Me and Bobby McGee? Chris Christopherson. So, and I kept thinking, who's this guy? Check it out. So go back to the record club, get a Chris Christopherson record.
Wow, man, I tell you something, I miss those days. But new days, though, what are the chances of you maybe touring this album? Album's going to be out September 30th as we speak.
I don't think that I'll ever actually tour this album, because it's just a thing. It's just a nice collection of music, and I think occasionally maybe one of the songs might pop up here and there. Certainly in when I do my acoustic shows, I do this thing called the bare bones acoustic shows. These songs will pop up occasionally. And what's also coming up pretty fast is November, which is the 30th anniversary of my album Reckless. So I've got a Reckless package coming out with 6 new songs on it, which were recorded in 1984, which had never been released before. So, you know, it's all go right now.
Look, I know we're going to have to wrap this up soon, but when you think about Reckless and you think about everything you've done, you know the word icon comes up with your name. Do you look at yourself as that?
Not really, no, man. I think troll when
I don't think so, my friend. I got to say, I've got the album Reckless. I've got the vinyl. I should have brought it with me. But more importantly, I'm just glad to have a chance to sit down and talk to you, my friend,
Thanks.
because you've been a big influence in my life, too.
That's really nice of you to say. Wow. And, well, if you like that album, you're going to love this package because I spent a lot of time on it. And it's been remastered, and it sounds a killer. And the interesting thing about it, I'll just tell you really quickly, you can use this later on if you want, was putting the Reckless package together. I went back to the vaults of Universal, which now own A&M Records. A&M was what the label I was signed to find all the original artwork and to get all the original tapes, and everything's missing. Every single photo, every single original tape, everything's gone, and so it was a real struggle. And I went down. Eventually, when I was in California working with David, I just happened to get to know the guy that was working in the archive there, and I said, you know, can I come down and just see what the heck you got there? He went, yeah, sure, but we don't have anything from Reckless. I said, okay, well, let me come down. So I went down and literally spent an afternoon, and I found 2 or 3 things which were like, I found the original, which is kind of like a large negative of the album cover. It just said original artwork. So I got that, and then I found a bunch of other negatives that were stuff that had just been, they were all misfiled. So then the tapes had gone, like there was nothing. So I just happened to go back into my vault and found a copy of the original half-inch master, which is the at the time everything was mixed and mixed down to half-inch, and so you can't remaster off a CD because that's already been mastered. So you got to go back to the tape, the original source. So I found this tape in my vault. I've got a big vault in Vancouver of all the stuff I've recorded over the years. Scrambled around and found it. Sent it to the mastering lab. He goes, okay, we're good. So piece by piece, these fragments, and then trying to find the photographers and find the original negatives of things. And it was really hard, but the package looks awesome. It's so cool. And then, of course, digging up the tapes, we dug up one of the songs that hadn't been recorded, and we had to bake the tape so that the
When you say baked, when you say baked?
When I'm saying bake it, you have to take a tape, you got to put it in an oven, and you have to bake it at a certain temperature, because the next time you play it, you have to transfer it over to digital, because as we were transferring it, you could see the oxide from the tape coming off, flaking off the tape. So it was the last time it was ever played, and because it's old, it's 30 years old, and it was in some cases recorded on. These songs were recorded on crappy tape because it's all we had at the time. So we kept reusing stuff, and anyway, we got these 6 songs that have, never been heard before, from me anyway. They were some of them were re-recorded by other artists, but it's a really cool collection.
Cannot wait. Do we know when it's going to be released exactly?
It'll come out in November, the same time the Reckless came out 30 years ago.
That means Christmas time. Christmas gift. Perfect thing to give.
Sweet, yeah.
My friend, thank you so much for this interview.
My pleasure.